The borrowed smile. On a quiet morning, the city moved as it always did, quick steps, lowered eyes, and minds full of worries. Among the crowd was Ion, a young boy walking to school with his backpack heavy and his heart heavier. His family had been struggling, and the weight of unspoken fears had slowly erased his smile. At the corner bakery, Ion paused. The smell of fresh bread drifted through the air, warm and comforting. Behind the counter stood an old baker with kind eyes and silver hair. Noticing the boy's tired face, the baker leaned forward and offered a wide, cheerful smile. "Here," the baker said softly, handing Ion a small bun. "It tastes better when shared with a smile." Ion hesitated, then slowly smiled back. It felt strange, almost borrowed, like wearing someone else's joy for much. He simply smiled. The baker smiled back, knowing the truth: smiles are never really borrowed. They are shared, and when shared, they multiply sparkles. And so, in a busy city, one small smile quietly made the world a gentler place. Yellow Heart. The next morning, Ion woke up before his alarm. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, thin and pale, but it felt warmer than usual. As he brushed his teeth, he noticed something unfamiliar in the mirror, a soft curve at the corner of his lips. He wasn't fully smiling, not yet, but the heaviness he carried seemed lighter. On his way to school, the streets looked different. The same cracked sidewalks, the same honking buses, but now Ion noticed small things he had once ignored. A sparrow hopping near a puddle bird. A shopkeeper sweeping dust away with care. Life hadn't changed, but his way of seeing it had. At school, Ion sat beside Hamza, a boy known for his silence. Hamza rarely spoke and often kept his head down. Remembering how the baker's smile had reached him without words, Ion quietly slid half of his lunch across the desk and offered a small smile. Hamza blinked, surprised, then slowly nodded. By the end of lunch, they were laughing softly, sharing stories in whispers. Later that day, the class was asked to write about something they were grateful for. Ion's pen paused. He wrote not about money or comfort, but about a smile that had been given freely. When the teacher read his words aloud, the room fell silent. Some students looked down, others smiled thoughtfully. A few wiped their eyes. After school, rain began to fall, cloud with rain. Ion waited under a bus stop, shivering slightly. A woman beside him looked exhausted, her shoulders slumped under invisible burdens. Without thinking, Ion looked up and smiled at her. Just a simple smile, nothing more. Her eyes softened. She smiled back and sighed, as if letting go of something heavy. That night, as Ion lay in bed, he realized something important. Kindness didn't need explanations. It didn't ask questions. It simply moved, quietly, gently, finding hearts that needed it most. Dizzy. And the borrowed smile. It was no longer borrowed at all. It was becoming part of who he was. Days slowly turned into weeks, and the borrowed smile continued its quiet journey through Ion's life. It wasn't always easy. Some mornings still felt heavy, and some nights were still filled with worries that refused to sleep. But now, Ion knew something he hadn't known before: kindness could exist even on hard days. One evening, Ion noticed his mother sitting by the window, staring into the fading light city at dusk. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap, her face tired from long hours and silent sacrifices. Ion remembered how a simple smile had once lifted his own heart. He sat beside her and, without saying a word, rested his head on her shoulder and smiled. His mother looked down at him, surprised. Slowly, her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of relief. She smiled back, a fragile smile at first, then a stronger one. In that moment, Ion realized that adults, too, sometimes need to borrow smiles from children. Yellow Heart. The next week at school, the principal announced a small initiative, Kindness Week. Students were encouraged to perform simple acts of kindness, no rewards, no names. Ion suggested something small but powerful: smile at someone who looks like they need it. The idea spread quickly. Hallways once filled with noise now held gentle moments, smiles exchanged between strangers, shy laughter, softened faces blossom. Even teachers seemed lighter. One teacher later said, "It feels like the school is breathing again." But the true test came on a difficult day. Ion failed a test he had studied hard for. The old weight returned, pressing on his chest. For a moment, the smile felt far away. As he sat alone on a bench after school, a familiar figure approached. It was Hamza. Hamza sat beside him and smiled. Just that. No advice. No questions. And in that instant, Ion understood the full truth. The smile he once borrowed had come back to him when he needed. Smile became a gift, passed on endlessly, never fading, always returning.